Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Taskmaster is Wonderful podcast. I'm Eric, and today I'm talking about Bestie Test, Season 1, Episode 4, the finale of Season 1. And in this episode, we have guest contestant Marko Lehtosalo, who is also known as Markoolio, a comedian and musician from Finland and Sweden. Originally from Finland, who moved to Sweden, apparently. This episode was really good. I was in tears laughing at a couple of points. And a great conclusion of the season. I wish there were more episodes of this cast, but it's a pretty solid 4 episodes. And I'm glad that there's going to be a lot more to watch. Only one more to watch on YouTube, though, on the official Taskmaster YouTube. That's how I'm watching it. But anyway, we opened with the prize task. We had the best dinner guest plus Babben, who would go out to dinner. All of them would join the winner of this episode for dinner after the show. Bianca brought her mother, Jasmine. Kodjo brought a saxophonist. Pia brought herself. Claes brought a gay football fan. Which apparently is not a very popular football club. Lots of jokes about him and the person he brought being the only 2 fans. Well, 2 of the 3 fans in the whole country, I guess. And then Marko brought in Onassis, a little dog, a cute little dog. Of course, I agreed with Babben in placing Onassis in first place for 5 points. Absolutely the best dinner guest. Maybe you don't want that little dog at the dinner table, up in the chair on the table, but right there at your feet. If you drop any crumbs or anything, that dog is right on top of it. Everything else was off by 1 from how I would rank them. And so I was really surprised that Claes's football fan friend got 4 points. I put him in last place. But my rankings match up otherwise. 2 points goes to Pia, because not a very creative, not a lot of effort to bring herself. She's already there. And that's kind of like she gave herself the prize by putting herself up to be the prize for dinner. She gets to be the dinner guest of all these other dinner guests. That's kind of cheating. Maybe she should have gotten last place. 3 points go to Bianca, and 4 points. Like I said, why? Why did Claes get those 4 points? Maybe they were pity points in a way. Next up, we had Move the Boulder as Far as Possible, which is originally seen in the UK Series 1, Episode 5. All right, first we see a whole lot of Pia struggling so much with this boulder. I'd say the boulder is maybe like 4 or 5 feet long, probably 5 feet long, because it doesn't fit width wise into a car. So first she carries it up a hill into a fence, and then she tries to put it in the car through the side of the door in the back seat of a hatchback. She does not for one moment think, hey, I could put it through the back of the hatchback. Maybe the seats don't go down in that one. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it would have fit if she loaded it through the back. But anyway, she calls a taxi. The taxi is a regular sedan. It's even smaller. The boulder is not going in there. She grabs a dolly from the shed and then gets over to the metro station. But the train does not arrive in time. Despite her having to load up some money onto her card. Then we see all the rest. Marko walks past a bunch of cars, but does end up getting into a car eventually. And it's a hatchback, so it works. Claes, Bianca, and Kodjo also get into cars that are hatchbacks, and they all work as well. So we end up with 2 of them in Broadby, and they're very close to each other. But in last place was Pia, only getting about 304 meters. For 2 points, 11.22 kilometers. is Marko. He ends up in Lindingo, which was a dead end because there's not a bridge to go as much further than he got. But he did get a nice, lovely view there on the water. He found a bench, and that was one of my favorite shots of this episode. For 3 points, Kodjo gets 22.8 kilometers to Brottby, and also in Brottby, but a little bit further, is Bianca, 25.74 kilometers. And then in first place, Claes gets even further, like substantially further, 33.9 kilometers. He really relishes that win. And he was ready to pounce on anybody that got further because he was obeying the law. That's one of the laws. I don't know if it's the case for this show, but Taskmaster UK, one of the rules is to not break any laws. That's just an umbrella rule over the entire show. So he would have had a fair point, but he got the furthest, so it's all good. Next up, we had the task of borrow 100 kroner from a high-income person, somebody who earns at least 50,000 kroner per month. And they did double-check everybody's actual incomes, which was it's a bit weird to do that for some of the people that were on there, but it had a pretty fun payoff that one person got disqualified, or rather only got 1 point. I think maybe she should have been disqualified. But Pia calls a colleague, a fellow actor, and 2 points went to Marko, who found a doctor nearby and then made an appointment to go up to her office and borrow the 100 kroner. And then Claes asked David if he could borrow it from him, and then he would pay him back by a lot, but he refused to do it. And then some lady comes by. She's pushing a stroller, I think, and he gets her to loan him the money. And then, I did that in the wrong order. He got 4 points. 3 points goes to Kodjo. Is that right? There's no way that's right. Yeah, I guess that is right. I thought Kodjo was faster than Claes. But when I checked, by the way, shout out to taskmaster.info. It's a great place to find all of your statistics on all of the different Taskmaster series. And this is where I found a lot of the sometimes they skip over what points people got, and you kind of have to infer from the totals that are shown later, and there are some discrepancies in this season. And this website, taskmaster.info, makes note of all those discrepancies, and if there are known explanations, that can be found on there. Otherwise, it's kind of assumed. In this episode, it's assumed that the discrepancies are from a task that took place in the studio or was filmed and was part of the whole process, but then was cut out for time. I'm thinking they cut it out so that they could spend more time with Pia struggling with the boulder. They even mentioned that she took up a lot of time for the show. But first place, 5 points, 1 minute and 45 seconds. Bianca, she basically says your task starts now, your time starts now, turns around, runs into a guy, and gets it done. It probably would have been like 30 seconds if he had the cash on him, but they had to go to an ATM. So yeah, that was pretty fun. It was, I would say it's kind of similar to the High Five 52-year-old in that it is one of the only like interacting with the public being an obvious, or not an obvious, a required thing. So I like this one. I like this one better, but it seemed a lot more awkward. But somehow it ended up not being as awkward because it was really iffy on the UK series. Then we go to the middle of the program. Marko, who has a funny name, Markulio? No, his last name, Lehtosalo, is from Finland, and so they play Finnish sticks, or Finska Pinar. They have a whole theme song and everything for it. The glass bowls from the last episode are back, but they only have one bowl each. They don't have to worry about the the missing 2 that maybe they had plans to use all 10 of those bowls, but because Kodjo and Pia broke them in the last episode, they had to readjust. But the bowls are filled with these finished sticks, and they have to build a structure, and the tallest structure wins 5 points. Everybody else gets 0 points. Bianca is doing really well, but it fell over. She's devastated, and Kodjo ends up with a 37 centimeter structure, getting the full 5 points. Next up, we had create a task for the others that has a 100-second time limit, and this is for the permanent guests, permanent contestants, and then the guest contestant is the one doing all of the tasks. Really great way to do this one. I liked it a lot. The person guessing nailed it. Really good job. I tried to guess them as well. I only got 1 correct. So let's take a look at the tasks. Build a tower out of newspaper and tape. Marko was terrible at that. He basically crumpled up. You just roll the paper up into tubes. Why didn't he do that? It's absolutely bonkers the way he did that task. Not that it mattered at all, because it wasn't the actual task. He nailed it doing 50 squats in 100 seconds, which was Kodjo's task. The tower was Pia's. Explain how Tommy Korberg's knees were added surgically using a skeletal model. So Tommy Korberg is a Swedish singer, and Marko is able to figure it out because he knows that Tommy and Claes are friends. So he nails that one. And then finally we had Bianca's task of take the finish wheel position and walk 20 steps while saying, "I don't have any milk at home" in Finnish. So I wonder if they knew if that it didn't seem from the reading of the task that they knew that it was just for Marko, because the wording of it was that they had to task for the other contestants. So maybe they knew that it was for... No, why would they make it easier for him? They would want to make it hard, so they would have chosen Icelandic or something. So I don't know, but it doesn't even matter how hard the actual tasks were. Marko absolutely nails all 4 guesses and gets 4 points. Next up is make a train honk. You have a maximum of 15 minutes. Fastest time wins. The house is right next to some train tracks for a fairly regular enough that you would get trains going by a few times during those 15 minutes. So first we see Claes, who writes a really wordy sign. First he tries waving at the train, doesn't do anything. Then he writes a whole sign about it being his 50th birthday or something, and bounces on a trampoline, which is much further away from the train than where he was before. I think if he stood where he was before with the sign, it could have worked. But he sticks to that plan, changes the wording of the sign, makes it a little bit simpler, and fails to get the train to honk. So he gets 0 points for the task. Then we see Pia, who first puts a big basket on top of a rake and then sits on a fence and hopes that makes the train conductor honk the horn. She realizes it's pretty dumb and decides to run to the bridge at the train station, which Kodjo also decides to do after making a sign, but he drives there and wonders who would run. Pia would. Great editing between those two. He tells one of the train conductors that it's Babben's birthday, and if he would honk the horn, and they do as they're leaving. I guess they're probably not allowed to honk when they're sitting at the station, which I think is what the trouble that Marko ran into. He also drives directly to the station. He doesn't make a sign or anything. He just waves to the conductor and tries to get their attention, and then they refuse to honk. But he's like across, it's the next set of tracks over, so he's like yelling and not really able to communicate as well as Kodjo was. But then he realizes, and this is the thought I had, you could make a train of people just right away and then honk, and that's got to count. And that's exactly what Marko does at the train station. He grabs a couple of the waiting passengers, and gets them to form a human train, and they honk, and all is good. Then Bianca, she runs inside, grabs her phone, and finds a train sound effect. First of all, that doesn't really count, because it's a phone playing a sound, and it's not a train. Second, it's not honking, because it was a train whistle. It's a whistle, not a honk. And then third of all, no, those were the two things. There doesn't even need to be a third. You only need one of those things to justify her being disqualified, along with Claes. Claes wasn't disqualified. He just didn't complete the task. So even though she was the fastest with 1 minute and 48 seconds, she gets 0 points. They even bring in an expert, Gunilla Norberg. She is a language expert, and she says, yes, Marko's attempt does count as a train, but Bianca's does not. I absolutely agree with that. So Marko with 6 minutes and 3 seconds gets 5 points. Pia with 7 minutes and 23 seconds gets 4 points. 8 minutes and 36 seconds, Kodjo got 3 points. But he still did way better than Claes and Bianca. By the way, so because of that setup, I think that's the only time. So a wholly unique task for this season. So then we have Stage Realistic Home movie blooper, which of course we saw in UK Series 1, Episode 6. As with all of the other team tasks, the guest contestant chooses which team they think will win. So Marko chooses to back the team of Pia and Claes. But first, let's talk about Bianca and Kodjo. Bianca is standing on the window frames of two cars, and is doing a epic splits like the Jean-Claude Van Damme commercial. And for some reason there's a sword underneath her. I guess that's part of the danger of the epic splits. But then one of the cars starts to roll backwards, and she falls down. The camera operator panics. There's a nice little cut to the cameras getting set on the ground, and we see Kodjo trying to help Bianca, who has been run through the armpit with the sword, blood everywhere. It was a pretty fun idea. I didn't really think it had the full vibe of a home video blooper. That doesn't seem like something. Well, I guess maybe you would do that in a home video, trying to do a stupid stunt like that. But this was by far outdone by what at first I thought doesn't even count as a home video blooper, because what they were planning to do was a prank, that they were actually like making a thing happen as part of the video itself. So like it wasn't going to be something that was accidental, which you'd think. But I do give them some pretty good credit for not knowing really what a blooper was going into it. So the plan that they had was pretty iffy if it went exactly as they had planned. So basically, Pia was hiding in a bush outside of that front door, and then Claes went in to get David to do a behind-the-scenes interview with him, but he wanted to go outside where the light was better, and then Pia would jump out and scare David. David was not scared. Claes was very frightened, And everybody just starts laughing their heads off in the studio. And I was in tears. I rewatched it a couple of times, and that was before they replayed it on the actual show. And then I rewatched that a couple of times. Everybody cracking up. It was so, so good. So even though the original plan definitely was not a blooper, the fact that Claes was scared by his own plan was one of the best bloopers that didn't involve any kind of falling down or anything like that. It was pretty much perfect. So they got 3 points. Marko got 3 points for choosing them. And that brings us to the final task of the series, of the season. The live task: stand up after 100 seconds. The most precise standing up time wins. There's some psychology going on with David. He's trying to mess with them, trying to talk to all of them, but they're all like counting to themselves. And he's like, well, it seems like I'm talking to nobody here. And at one point he says, your time is up. And Pia shoots up out of her chair and David cracks up. I really liked how much David was laughing this entire episode. Really seems like he was having fun in this episode. But he was really messing with them. And Pia stands up. I was trying to count. I think it was edited down for time a little bit. I don't know. Maybe my counting to myself is just really, really slow. But I thought Pia stood up at around 57 seconds, but it was at 85 seconds. And then like one after another, the other four stood up about 15 seconds later. The next person to stand up was Kodjo, followed by Bianca, then Marko, and then Claes. But all of them were further from the time. So 1 point went to Pia at 85 seconds, and then 2 points to Claes at 103 seconds, really close. 3 points to Marko at 102 seconds. 4 points to Bianca at 101 seconds. And 5 points to Kodjo, exactly 100 seconds. Incredible. But those 5 points is not enough to secure a victory for Kodjo on the episode. That honor goes to Marko, who had a whole 25 points. Second place with Claes with 21. Bianca and Kodjo had 20 points each, and Pia had 16. There were some discrepancies with what we actually observed on this episode from those scores. So it seems like, according to taskmaster.info, that there was perhaps an unaired task that was cut out. And so that brings us to the series scores. In last place was Claes with 73 points. And then fourth place was Pia with 78 points. The guest contestant spot got third place with 79 points, or second place with 82. These are the only two placements that were swapped with the discrepancies throughout the season. Kodjo got 80 points, or 77, for second place or third place. And Bianca won the season with 88 points or 84 points. Either way, she was the winner, and that is super awesome. The bust of Babben, it looks gigantic and heavy compared to just the head of Greg Davies. Or maybe she was just really good at acting like it was really heavy, but it is definitely huge. So, really, really fun episode, really fun season. Like I said, I wish there was more than just the 4 episodes, but, I am super excited to get into season 2. I haven't even looked at the contestants. Not that I would know who they are just by looking at the list of names or anything, but I have no idea what I'm in for the next season. So thanks for listening. Be sure to head to tiwpodcast.com to find all the ways to subscribe, Spotify, iTunes, and also follow on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, TIW Podcast. Just type those 3 letters and put the word podcast and without any spaces. And I'll be back real soon with Bestie Test Season 2. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye.